I'm Robert Caputo, and today on Sonic Perspectives, we are speaking with Kurdt Vanderhoof of Metal Church for the release of Congregation of Annihilation, which is coming out on May 26th. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Killer album.
Hey, thanks. I'm really glad we got this far. When we, when all the things that happened, didn't know if we would make it this far, but we did, and everybody seems pretty happy with it, including
I love the title, by the way. It's a great title.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a family album. It's a real family kind of uplifting kind of album. Yeah.
Awesome. And that's the way it should be.
Absolutely. The metal. Got to bring the metal to the children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Metal to the masses, right?
That's right. No, the children. Yeah.
The children.
Right.
And I'm sorry to hear about the Mike's passing. Right, I interviewed him a bunch of times in the past, so that was shocking news.
Oh boy, yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a tough one. When anybody does that, that's just,
of course,
it's hard to get my head around that.
Yes. Yeah, we recently lost a friend, and it was it was crazy. We couldn't figure out why and how, and
yeah,
you're left with a lot of unanswered questions that you're never going to get answers to, and that's the hardest part.
Right.
It's never closure.
Exactly. Yeah.
With the pandemic and Mike's passing, was there ever a time when you lost faith in continuing as a band?
Well, when Mike passed, yeah, that was definitely, for a good couple of months there was like, no, I can't. No, I don't know. That's a sign that no, that's it. It doesn't get any more blatant than that. But at the same time, I had written an album for Mike in mind, and Mike and I had just started the process. I wrote a bunch of songs, gave them to him, and we were kind of sorting through what he liked and what we didn't like and that whole thing. So it had started already. And I thought, well, if nothing else, if we can figure out a way to at least put this out, as a tribute to him, so to speak, so be it. But we wanted to take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
And just kind of see. So that was the way we approached it. Let's see if we can find a singer without doing a big, huge campaign and, worldwide looking announcement thing. And let's see what happens. And then we checked a couple people out and found Mark. And then we kept working with Mark. One step kept getting better, kept working and working. So we just kind of approached the whole thing that way. It continues now. So
he's a killer vocalist. Wow.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's great. Wow. Yeah, it's great. And it also took us back to, one thing that I like about it, it's not really a continuation of anything. It's definitely a chapter turning, page turning in our history. And we didn't want to try to emulate. We didn't want a Mike clone or a David Wayne clone or anything. We found somebody that fits with the band, but also has his own thing going on. So
yeah, very unique voice. And I really enjoyed it. I think you did a
cool. Thank
job,
you. Yeah.
So when you were writing these songs with Mike in mind, did he ever put down any lyrics, or was there anything?
No.
It was just
no. Yeah, just the riffs, and we had started discussing it. And once things with Mark started developing, realized that the band was going in a much more aggressive, thrashy direction.
Yes.
So then there was some songs out of the pile of songs I wrote with Mike in mind that didn't apply anymore. So I wrote some new songs. So it's kind of half old stuff and half new stuff.
Oh wow! What's the oldest song would you say on there?
Well, they were all written at the same time within a month of time when it's like, okay, it's time to write Metal Church songs. So I just usually the way I work is like, okay, it's go time, go, and so I go, okay, there's a pile of songs and I like them, then we'll start whittling them down from there. So it was all pretty much written at the same time. So
are you the type of person that writes riffs all the time and then stores those riffs when you need them, or you just write for the moment?
Yeah, I do all the time. I have a guitar sitting by me pretty much anywhere I sit around if I'm watching TV or online, and I'll just grab it and start playing something. Then I got a little dictaphone that's cool, and just hit that real quick just to store it. So then if it's time to put an album together, whatever, I'll start scanning through it,
No, that's cool. That's very good.
Yeah. I've learned to do that over the years because so many, that's a great riff, and then it's gone,
Tell me about the ability to merge metal, thrash, and melody, because that's so important to what Metal Church is about and what they do, what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I can't really do it. I can't really get behind it any other way. It has to be that way for me. So I write that way. I can write the riff and I like the aggression of the music, but when it comes to the vocals coming in, it's got to take it to another level. It can't just, and that drives me nuts. Yeah, no disrespect, but the bands that have just a kick-ass heavy riff chunk along and the vocals come in, it's I just click. I just don't do that. I mean, that's just not my thing. I get nothing out of it. So I guess it's kind of without saying anything, you know, without, or, you know, just without trying to do it. It's just naturally the way my brain goes. So if, you know, like when we're working with vocals, you know, listen to what the singer was doing and, you know, okay, that's great, but it needs a little melody. Here's where it goes. Let's change this part. You know, it's gotta be musical, you know, or, and I can't do it, you know, and some people may even say that what we're doing is not musical, but it still kind of is, you know, and it's got to be a hook. There's got to be melody, and there's got to be those things in it. So yeah, that comes natural. I don't even think about it anymore. You know, that's just the kind of music that I like, you know.
So you're thinking of melody while you're writing the riffs?
I'm writing the riff, and then, you know, as the song starts coming together, then I'm like, okay, vocals go here and it could do this or this or this. That's why it was really fun doing this with Marc, because he ended up writing all the lyrics on this record just because and it came in from a different place, and he had a real hybrid way of doing it, which was, you know, he had the aggressive and the you know, the snarling and everything too, but it would also be, there's a pattern, there's some notes and some melodies in there that he did. So it was like, wow, okay, this is great. So at that point, I just kind of went, okay, you know, I just let him run with it. And it was great because then it wasn't all out of my head all the time,
right.
You know, which makes it more fun for me. You know, I mean, I love to do it, but I don't have to do it, you know.
No, it's great. You know, a perfect example I thought was Making Monsters of that, what you just talked about. What's the origins of that song? I believe it's your second single, right?
It's the second single, right? Making Monsters. Now, again, Marc wrote the lyrics for it. My understanding is how you don't, if you're not really paying attention to what you're doing, you know, especially with what's going on in the world today, and not to get political or anything, but you just see kind of the things that are going on in society, and that's a lot of what's happening now.
Yeah.
You know, the results and getting, you know, you're paying the price for your actions, you know, and nobody is taking accountability for anything that they're doing. It's kind of part of the culture now. Yeah. There's nobody who's responsible for anything, and it's making monsters, you know. So
I get it. That's pretty good. How about the riff? Tell me about how you came up with that.
It came out.
Really?
Just that playing, it came out. It wasn't. It's just, I was in writing mode. Okay, this is what we're doing. We're doing some more thrashy, aggressive stuff. We need some more songs, and it just came out. It doesn't. I don't ever really think about it too much. I just play, and if I'm in writing mode, I just play until something comes out, and I go, okay, I like that, and then develop that. So,
and you talk about melody, having one of the bonus tracks, the My Favorite Sin. Wow, that is melody driven. That's a really melody driven song with killer riffs.
Right. Well, that's kind of one of the older school style Metal Church songs. Yeah. Because the stuff we did with Mike was more considering the way metal is now, that would be considered hard rock. Yeah. You know, a lot of the Mike Howe stuff. You know, what I mean today, because heavy metal now, I mean, stuff is just so aggressive, it's just mind numbing. You know, where, you know, the stuff that would consider, you know, metal back in the 80s is pretty light. You know, pretty light by comparison today. So the Mike Howe era stuff is definitely more melodic hard rock. So that was one of the songs from that era. So,
I got it.
From that batch, I should say.
Yeah. And you know, we talked about it, but how did you find Marc?
Marc was already kind of in our orbit, is what I say. He was friends of Steve and Stet's.
Okay.
So he again, because we didn't want to run a big national announcement that we're looking for a singer or anything like that, because I didn't know if it was going to work, if we were going to continue. So we wanted to do everything under the radar. So he was suggested by Stet and Steve. So
it was a great choice. Really.
Yeah, exactly. It worked great. Yeah.
My editor was talking about, and I was unfamiliar with that. He actually performed with Ross the Boss.
He still does with Ross the Boss. Yeah.
Okay. I got to go back now and check some of that stuff out because
yeah.
So enthralled by his voice, his vocal.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, it'll be good for Ross. Yeah.
That's true. You know, you touched upon this too. When writing, who inspires you now and who inspired you maybe in the past, and how is it different?
For me, it would still have to be the people that inspired me in the first place to play guitar. Yeah, it would definitely be, you know, Alex Lifeson, Michael Schenker, Ted Nugent, all the 70s. I'm a child of the 70s, so it's all those guys. Music started with me with the Beatles, but it went up through that. But when I really started playing, it's all those guys. The Thin Lizzy guitarists, Robin Trower, those kind of guys. So it's all still the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that of because your music is so much heavier than everybody that you just mentioned.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I took that and went somewhere else, but that's why I have other projects too, because instead of trying to, be creative in other signs, I don't want to do that to Metal Church. Metal Church has a definite template you work from. So that's why I have Presto Ballet, which is my 70s prog rock band. And then I have Hall of Flame, which is the band I was in after Metal Church. We just finished a new album, and that's just straight up meat and potatoes rock and roll.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
So that'll be coming out this fall. So I'm really excited about that too. So I have I need a lot of other outlets because I like all kinds of music and I like to challenge myself and I like to play all different kinds of stuff too. But, I don't want to go, hey, I'm in a kind of progressive rock mood. I think I'll add keyboards to Metal Church. And no, I'm not going to do that. So I definitely need something else to do,
So in your mind, how do you separate the three when you're writing a song or coming up with a riff? You go, oh, this is this.
Oh, I just know, okay, in mind, this is a Metal Church. It's time to write some Metal Church songs. Or, okay, now I'm doing a new Presto record, which is what I'm working on currently. And then, the Hall of Flame record, it was already stuff that had been written. That's why we decided to make the new album, is because we had, a pile of songs for a second record that never got made. And we just decided, well, let's just finish it for, if nothing else, to just, so we document it, whether it comes out, professionally or whatever. We wanted these songs recorded and finished. Yeah. So we just decided to do it, and it ended up wow, this came out way better than we had hoped. So we decided we're gonna pursue it too. So
I look forward to hearing that. It's incredible how that you could bucket it, for lack of a better word, and always stay within the confinements of Metal Church, because Metal Church definitely has that signature sound that's clearly you, regardless who's singing on it.
Well, yeah, I think it's just because of the riff writing, and that's kind of my thing. And me not being a lead guitar player, really, I'm always much more into the riff, the song riff, and having that be the hook, and just because I'm always fascinated, I didn't care about the solo. How did he come up with that riff for Cat Scratch Fever or any number of riffs, classic riffs that when you hear it, you're like, I know that song, that's what always grabbed me, And what's fun is that Rick, the lead guitar player, he was the exact opposite growing up. He would take his records and he would skip to the solo and listen to that and go to the solos, where I would take the song, play it all the way up to the solo, skip the solo, and then play the rest of the song. And we'd laugh about that all the time because we had, basically the same, upbringing and same era and everything. And it was the exact opposite of what we were doing. It was like, so that worked out perfectly. Yeah.
You sound like me. I was more the rhythm guy, and I was, always focused on the riff and the rhythm and trying to get that down and perfect it. And the lead was almost like trigonometry or calculus, and I just couldn't do it. When, like we talked a little bit earlier before on camera, was Eddie came out and we're like, what is he doing? That's not your typical.
Yeah, what's this? When you found out it was this, I'm like, what? Everything just changed. Yeah. So, yeah.
We were talking about what was your favorite Van Halen album?
Favorite Van Halen album? Fair Warning.
Fair Warning. Okay.
Yeah.
Good choice. Good choice.
But yeah, I mean, that was a huge moment too when that album came out. Hearing You Really Got Me on the radio, driving home from school, or driving around doing whatever we did in high school. That comes on the radio, and it's like, same thing happened when you hear the first Boston album on the More Than a Feeling comes on. You're like, one of those moments that I don't know, hasn't happened since. Maybe a couple of times since, but not with that kind of impact.
Yeah, mine was, as I mentioned, mine was Fair Warning. It was Women and Children.
Yeah.
Great Old Rock came on, and we were playing wiffle ball outside and just doing things kids do. And I was like, this is really cool. And
yeah, isn't that fun? Yeah, that's what it's all about. Yeah, because I'm still a fan. I'm still You know, I'm still a fan. I got all my posters and around my house, but I'm a grown up, so at least they're in frames now. Right?
Yeah, it used to be stapled and scotch taped, right?
Yeah, like there's like cool. Yeah, exactly. No, I put them in frames and collect them now. So yeah, I love album art because not only is it a cool piece of art, but it has something sonically attached to it, you know.
Well, that's why I'm glad vinyl's coming back. I love vinyl.
Oh boy, yeah, me too. Yeah.
I love putting it on and side one and side two, and you listen through the whole thing. You didn't really jump around. You just put it on.
CDs are too long now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't really want to hear anybody for, you know, for 80 minutes. You know, just because you can put that much music on an album doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Because more often than not, you know, if you have that much material, a lot of it is throwaway tracks. You know, can you imagine Pink Floyd if they filled it up? I mean, Dark Side of the Moon, if they filled it up with extra tracks? No, it wouldn't work, or, you know, or any album. So it's just, yeah, I that's all I listen to anymore is vinyl, unless you can't get something on vinyl yet, or, you know.
It is, to your point, it is challenging to absorb it all in one sitting. In our busy lives, maybe when we were kids, you just sit on the bed and put the headphones on for a couple of hours instead of doing your homework. But now it's like you're driving, you're off, you're doing this, and it's like, where did I leave off? What song was that? What did I like?
Yeah, exactly. That's why the car is a great listening place. You know, again, for CDs, you know, that's a good. But at home, it's all vinyl. That's all I listen to. That's great.
You know, I interviewed Mike before he passed, and I asked him what he thought Metal Church stood for, and he said it was integrity and always giving the fans the best. What would you say Metal Church stands for?
That's a good way to put it. For me, it would be musically, it would be obviously the aggressive and the power that everybody loves about heavy metal, but yet putting a little musicality in it and trying to keep it positive.
Yeah.
Keep the message, even though may sound a bit dark, but trying to keep the message positive. And that's also very important to me.
That's a great response.
Keep an uplifting response within the music, because so much of it, you know, especially in metal, can be so dark and just and that's very, very dangerous stuff. And I can't, I'm ain't down with that. So, you know, music is supposed to make people feel better, you know, and that's what I feel my duty, if for lack of a better term, with when I'm creating, if I have an audience, is to make sure that I can stand behind everything that we put out. So
that's a great response. That is fantastic. And I would agree with you. I tend to gravitate towards the more positive natured songs myself.
Yeah, I can't do black metal. I can't do anything with a pentagram or an inverted cross. Nope, see you later. Yeah, no thanks. No.
I would tend to agree with that. Yeah. What are some of the songs that you look forward to playing live off of this new album?
Well, we're gonna learn three of them, even though, you know, we'd love to play all of them, but even though we're getting a great response to the new record, we have to, you know, realize, you know, the people are going to come to the show, you know, they're our age, they've been with us forever, they're going to want to hear the old stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and because any band that I've been with that's been around, that I'm a fan of, that's been around for, you know, as long as we have or longer, you know, if they're still putting out records, that's great, and I love their new record, but I want to hear the old stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so we got to there'll be a couple songs off the new record, and we're not quite sure yet. we've got some that we've learned, and we're going to see how they feel when we play them. But a lot of the stuff is we're going to be going back to the David Wayne era, the early first two records, and doing that because Mark can do a really good job with that. And also because we, you know, obviously with Mike, we were doing the Mike Howe era, leaning heavily on the Mike Howe era stuff. Now we're going to go and do the concentrate on more of the David Wayne early era stuff. We're going to do some Mike Howe stuff, certainly, but you know, we're going to concentrate on the first two records. So, and we're going to pull out some gems that we haven't played for years, some couple of obscure album deep cuts we're going to do too.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. You know, it's funny, when I'm preparing for these interviews, I immerse myself in the album and I listen to it over and over and over, and I'm really enjoying it and getting into it. So when I hear you say you want to play the whole thing, sometimes I say I want to hear the whole thing in its entirety, because some of the stuff is so cool, you know. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's like you pick three, and you're like, I'd really love to hear more, you know.
Yeah. We'd love to play it, because a lot of the older stuff we've been playing for 40 years, you know. Yeah, but Yeah, we got to play, Beyond the Black and Metal Church, and you got to play God's Wrath, and you got to play Start the Fire, and you got to play Watch the Children Pray, and you got to play Badlands, you got to play Fake Heat, those are the ones that we got to do those, So,
90
yeah.
minutes later, it's like, well, we got to put a couple of new ones in.
Yeah, we got to throw a couple of new ones in here. So yeah, so it's kind of, and it is tough. It is really tough picking a set list. And I know, a lot of my peers, for bands that have been around for as long as we have, along with some other bands, have go through the same trouble. You want to play the new stuff because it's new, but your fans are there to hear the old stuff. Like I keep wondering how much Judas Priest wants to play, Sinner or any of that stuff. Just like, oh God, do we have to play this again?
Right.
But you have to, because that's the stuff, that's what the deal is.
Come to hear too.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
casual fan wants to hear that,
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Kurdt, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It was a fascinating.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Hey, my pleasure. Good to see you again.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you guys on tour.
What town are you in? Are you coming to the shows? You're in Jersey?
Yeah, right by New York. We're about an hour away from New York. And an
Oh,
hour
okay. So are you going to come to Asbury Lanes?
Yeah, that's a great place.
Yeah, cool.
I'll talk to Kevin.
Excellent. Thanks so much, man. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.